Right, hello, and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeline or CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Jessica Rhodes, who is in Rhode Island on the other coast. How you doing, Jessica?
I'm
You're
doing
this way,
great,
actually.
John. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. And you're the founder of Interview Connections, the world's first and leading podcast booking agency, launched in 2013 at a time when there weren't any other agencies. And you, and you started after booking your dad, a business coach on podcasts, so you could work from home as a new mom, which is great. And then you have booked over 50,000 podcast interviews, 1,000 coaches, and you're deeply passionate about helping coaches who feel like the best kept secret to grow their business through authentic human to human podcast connections. And here we are on a podcast. So there you go. So first of all, I mean, what inspired you to create podcast connections was getting your dad on podcasts.
Yeah, Interview Connections was founded out of a desire, as you said, for me to be a stay-at-home mom, but it was
Mhm.
through booking my dad on podcasts that led me to see that there were no other agencies or companies or service providers specifically offering podcast placements or
Mhm.
podcast booking for podcast hosts. I love doing it. There was this demand in the market, and so the timing was perfect, and I went ahead and founded the company.
And then here's an interest here, and we could talk about podcasting all day long, but it's got a more interesting subject here, and that's talking about your journey with sales, right? Because obviously, you've set up interview connections. You see there's a demand in the market. Um, did you initially think I'm going to need to hire some salespeople?
Oh my gosh, John. So I'm so excited for this interview. Uh, so, okay, I started hiring salespeople in 2020, which is 6 years ago.
Hmm.
Depending on when people are listening to it, 6 years ago, and it was actually not something. I mean, I went from 2013 to 2020 before I ever considered
Right.
bringing on a sales team, and I know that's what we're going to talk about in this interview, but I do not have a sales team on purpose now. And it took me 6 years to finally wave the white flag and say, okay, there's something out of alignment here. Having a sales team is not working. And so I'm excited to dissect that for your audience today.
Yeah, so let's start off. I mean, what was the first thing? I mean, obviously, one of the key indicators of it not working is you're not getting lots of sales. But what were some of the other factors that you suddenly started to notice why it wasn't working?
Yeah, and over the years, we had a whole batch of salespeople, and it's not that they never closed sales. They all
Mhm.
closed sales here and there. It was never that consistent. But the thing that I finally came to terms with in the relatively recent past is that podcast guesting, and specifically the way our service is crafted and who our service is ideal for and how our service is structured, is is really right for one particular ideal client avatar.
Mm.
And having a sales team was, elements of it were great because I had people that were hungry for sales. They wanted to close sales. And so that's why I tried to make it work for 6 years, is because I was like, gosh, if I
Right.
can figure out how to have a successful sales team, I will have money coming in. I can step away from the business and just let this agency be a cash cow. The dream for an agency owner is just to like have it all run and you just cash those checks. And it never quite got to that point because I realized and I learned that they were hungry to close sales, but not everyone was the right fit. And I was incentivizing an action. I was incentivizing the sale being closed
Mm.
while at the same time telling them, don't close that person. No, they're not the right fit. No, 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 don't close because they're not going to have success with us. And so there was this just friction that went
Yeah.
on for years. And that was kind of the big reason I said, we need to change how we're closing sales here.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. And I just want to underline that for the listeners is right. So you discovered you had a specific ideal customer profile, like an ICP, right? Very specific. But you also, so that was who people should go after, but you're also incenting people to close business, right?
Mhm.
So as you said, there's a bit of a friction there because now I'm looking at the ICP if I'm a salesperson and I'm going, "Hmm, well, this person kind of fits in here, and this person sort of maybe kind of fit. And before you know, we're just to have volume, we're selling to the wrong people.
Exactly. And the way, what we're selling is a podcast guesting service, a podcast
Yeah.
placement service. And there's so many nuances to that. There's
Mhm.
which types of podcasts, which categories of podcasts is it a smaller pool to book in? Which types of clients, whether it's their mindset or their industry, are more difficult to book than others. There's all these details that it was very difficult to get any salesperson up to speed on all of the intel that myself and my service delivery team have.
Mhm. Yeah, and it is interesting because if you think about you know podcast guesting, right? It's a relatively new phenomenon. I mean, it's going on a while. We're all kind of veterans of this now, but we forget that at the beginning, like there wasn't that many people doing it, and there was a lot of
Mhm.
skepticism. And now there's obviously a lot more people, but there's a lot of people who sort of want think, yeah, this might be good for me to do, but they don't really know what's involved in it. So they need somebody who's going to reassure them, is going to guide them, is going to help them, because most people are coming to this pretty much as neophytes, right?
Oh, for sure. And it's not the right marketing strategy for every
Yeah.
business owner.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
that's what's makes having a sales team just hasn't worked out for me because my sales calls, kind of put it in air quotes there for those listening to the audio, are really qualifying calls. They're
Hmm.
discovery calls where I really am trying to figure out, is this even the right next step for your business? Because oftentimes I'll have a call with somebody who's got a nice website, like everything that I can see online seems like they'd be a great client for us. And I'm asking them questions, learning about them and their business and their origin story and what their goals are. And then I say, well, how many clients do you have? What's your average monthly revenue? And they say
Hmm.
zero. And have to say, like, I could book you on podcast. That's not the question. I know I can
Yeah.
deliver my service to you. But if I do, you are going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars before ever seeing a sale close from this
Hmm.
investment because it takes time for interviews to get published, to go live, for
Yep.
listeners to take action. And so I'm like, it would be out of integrity. I would I would feel quite badly if you paid me this
Right.
money and then it wasn't the right. You need to go get some clients. You need to build up your revenue before you start hiring agencies to do brand building and marketing. Um, and that was a very difficult skill set to teach a salesperson who is incentivized to close sales.
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. And the interesting thing as well is, I mean, you would think, or on the surface, people might think, well, podcast booking, that's very transactional, right? That's, somebody
Mhm.
wants to be on a podcast, calls you up, here's some money, book me on podcast, right?
Right.
Um, but what you're saying is no. In fact, it needs to be a very consultative approach because it's not applicable to everybody. And quite frankly, well, you don't want to set up people for failure, do you?
No, and, like, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other companies in my space who are very transactional, like and
Hmm.
we were that way for a long time. It was a lot more transactional for a long time because it was like, "Yeah, you wanna buy 10 bookings? Sure, I'll get you on 10 shows, no problem. We'll
Yeah.
we'll call it a day." But we have a monthly membership model, and clients can cancel anytime. And I don't want clients to cancel in 2 months because
Mhm.
we're not getting them sales. So
Yeah.
that's why for our monthly membership model with no long-term contract, for that to be effective as a business strategy, I need to only sign on clients who I believe will stay with me for a long time because it's the right fit for their business.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point as well, is that you can grab clients, right? But whether you can deliver what they perceive they wanted, and whether you can retain them is another thing entirely. And obviously, if you're grabbing the wrong people, or people who are like, after a couple of podcasts, no, I'm not really, this isn't really for me, it's not going to help your business, right? To have a huge churn.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why so many consumers, so many, prospects out there for us all
Mhm.
are so burnt out and are so skeptical because they're so used to people just trying to close them and aren't really concerned about whether
Mhm.
or not it's the right fit for them. So it's been interesting since I've kind of taken this new approach where it's really more about qualifying and make sure it's the right fit. I've turned some people away who I know it's not the right fit for. I know this will
Mhm.
not be successful based on what their goals are. And they're like, look, they're offended. They're like, "What?" And I'm like, "I mean, do you want me to take your money and then not help you reach the goals you
Yeah.
just told me you wanna make?" Like
Yeah.
it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I know that is fascinating, because I guess everybody wants to perceive that they're a fantastic guest and going to be, this is going to work out great for them. I think,
Yeah.
how much has perceptions, like, out in the marketplace, like, because now people are going, oh yeah, go on podcasts, we'll book you on podcasts and you'll get tons of, people will recognize you and you'll sell loads and you'll be really popular, all of that. Explain to people the actual reality.
I mean, yeah, that like that right there, what you're describing is definitely what I'm up against all the time because, years ago when I first started and I had no competitors, like I could really lead the message of this being a
Hmm.
long-term brand building strategy. And now there's other companies that, I mean, just today I lost a sale from somebody who's going to a competitor that really has that messaging that you just said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, good. I literally said good luck. And I didn't mean for it to be sarcastic, but it kind of feels that way. I'm truly like, good luck. Um,
Hmm.
and that transactional nature out there, that's what people want, honestly. Everyone wants a
Hmm.
quick fix. Everyone wants a silver bullet. There's so much over promising and under delivering, and I do think so many consumers are like they don't even want to know that it's under delivering and over promising. In the moment it feels good to get a big promise. They're like they can
Yeah.
just live in that hope. And I just won't do that. Like I will under promise and over deliver, and I will try to accurately promise and accurately deliver, but that's a thing. There's so many companies coming into
Hmm.
this podcasting space and they want to make those big promises, like saying, oh, we'll get you there's another company out there that'll be like, you want to be on a diary of a CEO, and that's their hook, and I'm like, you're not going to get your clients, like that's not happening. Like
Yeah.
that's a huge, so he's interviewing like big names, and you're
Yeah.
trying to tell this business coach who has a six-figure business he's gonna be on that show. Like, it's just tricky marketing, and I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah. It's like telling them you can get them on Joe Rogan, right?
Exactly, that was always the joke. Now people don't ask about that quite as much, but it does happen where people are they see those promises, they see those questions like, "Do you want this?" But those shows, they want guests that have a huge
Sure.
following,
Yeah.
and they'll charge for it. There's sponsored episodes. I mean, there's shows, average business owner shows that'll charge like $6,000 for an interview, and I'm just like, "Y'all are like, this is not
Yeah.
what this platform was meant for."
Yeah. So how much has, I guess, the fact that you've had to, you've chosen now to be sales and you've chosen to do all of this, how much has this helped you? Because now, with your business, because now there's not a gap between you and customers, right? You're directly there. So
Mhm.
how much has that helped you shape your business?
It's been really, really wonderful. So we're talking right now in early April, and my salesperson left in early February. So it's been a couple
Mhm.
of months now, and it's been really wonderful. There one thing I want to just mention is that so many business owners and agency owners are like, I want to scale my business. Like it's not scalable
Mhm.
to do your own sales. And I just want to say, not everything has to be scalable all the time. Like
Mhm. Yeah.
not everything has to be scalable all the time. You don't need to work yourself out of every aspect of your business right away. And so it's been really wonderful because in the past, like I was working more hours with a salesperson doing a lot of sales calls because it's like I would have to audit all those calls and like,
Mhm.
I would lose sales because she wasn't as effective at it as
Mhm.
I would be. And so I can do like, maybe two-thirds or a half of the number of calls every month and still hit the marks and hit the metrics. Um, and so it's nice and I can talk to every client before they sign up. There's like more cohesiveness with me and the service team. Whereas with the sales team, there's always a little bit of tension.
Mhm.
Sales team wants to overpromise and get the sale, and then the service delivery team has to clean it up and like realign expectations. So it's created a lot more cohesiveness and harmony within the whole company.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, and there's a real return to relationship, which, for
Yeah.
good, for most people didn't, for the best people it never went away, but it's a new discovery from, maybe, for people who have hidden behind inbound and all that kind of stuff over the years. So relationships are back, and then authenticity is a big issue too. Like, people want to deal with people who they can trust and connect with. So it,
Mhm.
it seems to you like, your pivot now, or you taking over, and it allows you to, increase the relational aspect, but also, as you said, the authenticity, like the realness, to be able to turn around to somebody and say, no, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work for you. Or
Yeah.
fine, if you want to go somewhere else and take that option, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think it helps too. Like in my live master, I do a live podcast guesting masterclass every month for free to teach people about podcast guesting. And I can truly say in that it's my launch. I don't have a sales team. I'm not trying to sign up as many clients as possible. My goal is to see if this is a good fit. And if it is,
Mhm.
I want to sign you up. If it's not, I'll send you away. But I'm the founder and I'm the owner. So I'm not getting like a commission on every sale. I get paid more when the business does well, and the business will
Mhm.
do well when the right clients are here with us long term.
Yeah.
And so I think that full alignment and the truth of that marketing message is what has people trust me so much more.
Yeah. And to tell me, one of the things that I don't think people understand is, you could get booked on podcasts, right? But if you don't deliver for those podcasts, or if you're not the right fit for those podcasts, that gets around and stuff like that. And the agency, so it kind of undermines the business if you go that route, as opposed to being very, very selective.
Oh yeah. The whole strategy has to be in alignment. You have to be on the right shows, you have to be represented well, you need to be talking about the right topics. That's why we incorporate so much coaching into our service. It's not
Mhm.
transactional. And sometimes people say like just over email, just tell me the price. And I'm like, I mean, I can give you the price, but like I'm not just going to sign you up over email. I need to make sure that you're the right fit for us.
And it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you have people who come, maybe they're used to, like, they've spoke on big stages, they've done all this, and now they're into this, and they're like, I don't need any of that. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's egos out there for sure. I don't work really well with egos. So, usually they're the ones I will not typically work with because they're not super coachable. And I
Yeah,
love working with clients that are like, "Hey, you're the expert here. What do I need to do to be successful with this strategy?"
because let's face it, I mean, I don't think people realize until sometimes, because I've had this experience a couple of times, like when people go on a podcast for the first time and they're not prepared, they don't really know what, and it's tough on both sides, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's the thing is, to see other agents like put unprepared people out there is not a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have a whole 8-week course that we require our clients to take when they first
Mhm.
sign up, and one of the modules is preparing for your interview, having the right mindset. I mean, we're really big on training our clients because they're representing us, they're representing
Mhm.
themselves, and this is a strategy where you're building your business by focusing on relationships first. And so
Mm.
you've got to focus on your relationship with the host of the show, how you're showing up, your energy in that conversation,
Mhm.
and that's what will ultimately attract people to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you, and I think that's so important, because you can tell the people who've been prepared from the people, who haven't. And I think
Mhm.
people underestimate sometimes. Like I said, you may be great at, like, you can deliver your company presentation, you can do that. That's no problem. But then suddenly, if you come on a podcast like mine, I'm not going to give you questions in advance, so
Yeah.
you're going to have to be able to flex, and that is something that I think sometimes people struggle with when they go, "Oh wow, you mean it's not going to be laid out like, he's going to ask this question, I have my answer
Mhm.
prepared, this question." I'm saying that's nobody likes, to be honest, nobody likes that in podcasts.
No, those are not the most enjoyable interviews
No.
to listen to. It's a conversation. You have to be free
Mhm.
flowing, and that is a skill set. It takes time. So that's why I say to, if people are really nervous, like go on some smaller podcasts, some newer
Mm.
podcasts, get your feet wet with a host who's maybe not 1,500 episodes in,
Mhm.
and then you work your way up to the more well-established podcasts.
Yeah, and I feel also you're in a better position probably to manage expectations than maybe, some salespeople would be if they're just, typical salespeople. Because
Mhm.
I think that's the other part is sometimes people go into this with very unrealistic expectations, like we mentioned earlier. Going
Oh
Joe
yeah.
Rogan, but not even that. But people who like go, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting enough attention," or people like didn't
Mhm.
all jump up and celebrate the minute I went on a podcast, and you're going, "Yes." Of
Yeah.
course they didn't.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I created the podcast booking industry. It's just like this is what I've done for 13
Mhm,
years. So I know I know the answer to every question people have. So it just makes the most sense. And I hope that one day in a couple of years, like
mhm,
I'll get to a point where there is somebody and I don't know who that person will be. Maybe it's someone on the team or I track the right person who can then have the same level of authority and knowledge. But again, going back to my point about not everything has to be scalable, I don't have to figure out the challenge that is 2 years away. I just need to
Mhm.
figure out what I need to do right now, this month, this quarter. And I think that just comes back to the point about being present and being
Yeah.
in the moment and focusing. And that's makes a great podcast interview is you're present, you're in the moment, you don't have distractions. You're not stressing about something that's going to happen next week. You're here in this interview. It's the same thing in life and business. Focus on today.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good point because sometimes, well, people tend to, set these big goals to themselves, and then they get so
Mhm.
fixated on the destination that they
Yeah,
ignore the journey, right? And let's face it,
exactly.
I mean, better than most. Podcasting is a journey. Whether you're a podcaster or whether you're guesting on it's a journey. And I guess, like I said, that's why it's your better place to manage expectations and to say people, you may not do great on your best one, on your first one. You may develop
Mhm.
after you may here's the other thing. It's like, you remember, I mean, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when we first were able to record ourselves on tapes and stuff, and you hear your voice back and you're going, that's not
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
And you go,
totally.
and everybody else is going, yeah, it is. And you're going, really? That's how I sound. And I think it's the same thing sometimes when people go on podcasts and stuff. Suddenly they're like, whoa, is that's me? And they get a little discombobulated by it.
Yeah, totally. It messes with you a little bit, but then the more you do it, the more, you get used to it. You learn how to talk in a natural tone.
Hmm.
But it takes practice and consistency. And that's why when somebody first starts doing podcast guests, they're like, how soon can I be on really big shows? I'm like, don't even worry about that right now. Right now, you need to convert and do really well on small to medium sized shows because if you were to go on a really big podcast today and nothing is set up to even take in the potential volume
Hmm.
of leads that would come from that, like you would ruin the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like saying like, "Oh, well, I have never done a presentation before," and you say, "Okay, well, here, go in front of 40,000 people in this auditorium and knock yourself out."
Exactly, exactly. I really believe that the universe doesn't give you those types of opportunities if you
Mhm.
can't handle it. And sometimes you
Yeah.
get the opportunity and then you totally fumble it. You ruin it.
Mhm.
You don't make the most of it. So treat every day like a training ground for the next day and just remember it is a journey. There's not a destination. And I've also over the years talked to so many business owners that do get on a really big show and they're like, nothing
Yeah.
really happened. It's like, "Oh, you got a really big show, and it's a big thing," and then a week later, nobody remembers. Everyone
Yeah.
moved on to the next episode, so don't put all your eggs in those big baskets.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really, really profound point to make to people is that getting on big shows may sound great, and maybe it is. I mean, it could be for your business, but the downside of that is big shows move on pretty fast, and they maybe you might be unlucky. Maybe the guest before you and the guest after you just happens to be really, really interesting people and far more interesting, I mean, than you are, and so you get lost in the mix. You may be far better off on smaller ones that are targeted to your ICP.
Mhm. Yeah, consistency, and I also want the listeners to know what it actually takes financially to be on really big shows because I have seen in my career clients that, started on small to medium-sized shows, and now they're huge with millions of followers doing all of the
Mm.
big name shows, Oprah,
Yeah,
Katie Couric, like all these shows. But the thing is that you don't realize they are spending tens upon thousands of dollars, probably a month, on PR firms that have those
yeah,
connections. So
yeah.
you can get there, but it takes an investment. I mean, people look at my prices like $1 to $2,000 a month. They're like, "Am I gonna get on Oprah?" Like, you're tripping if you think you're gonna get on
Yeah.
Oprah for $2,000 a month.
Yeah, people seem to forget that these are commercial entities, like they're
Exactly.
looking for audience. Well, listen, Jessica, this has been fascinating. This is a great conversation. All of Jessica's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the founder of Interview Connections. We help coaches turn podcast interviews into dream clients, and you can find us at interviewconnections.com.
Absolutely. Well, I would encourage you to reach out and check it out if you're considering going on podcasts. I wouldn't advise you to just go on it without any preparation or without speaking to people because, some people can do it, but they're the minority, to be honest. I mean, you need to have guidance, you need to be in front of the right people and be on the right podcasts. So thanks again, Jessica. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again soon.